Hello friends, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. So today I just wanted to have a chill discussion video. Be sure to grab a snack or some water or something. Cheers! Because today I want to have a little discussion on the School for Good and Evil Quest for Glory. This is the fourth book in the School for Good and Evil series and I have lots to say and lots to discuss. Before I jump in, the fifth book was released a few days ago and it is absolutely gorgeous. Can we just take a moment of appreciation? So as soon as I'm done filming this, I'm gonna jump right into reading this book because I'm so excited to see what happens. And overall this series, I just want to keep knowing what happens next. And also I've read each book in the School for Good and Evil series a few times, and so this one I have not read before, so I'm really excited to see if I'm able to predict what's gonna happen next or just overall what my thoughts are initially on this book since I have not read it before. And jumping back to this book though, I'm really excited just to talk about this book. I have some thoughts, a notebook here of things I want to talk about, and so honestly, let's just jump right in. As with all other book reviews, book talks, whatevers, I'm just gonna be going into a few non-spoilers, so if you have not read the book, don't worry, I got you, and then I will warn you from when I'm going from non-spoilers to spoilers, so that way no one gets spoiled. But honestly, I'm ready to talk about this book, so let's just dive right in. So, non-spoilers. For those of you that don't know what this book is about, I'm not gonna tell you because if I do, it'll spoil things from the last 3 books. If you have not read the other books or you have not seen my other videos where I tell you what they're about, be sure to go watch those. I'll link the first one in the cards over here, so be sure to check that out. But basically, I'll just give a brief description of the first book. It basically follows our 2 main characters, Agatha and Sophie, and they get taken to the School for Good and Evil. Sophie is like a girl that loves pink and dresses and doing good deeds, and Agatha is someone that lives alone with her mother in a graveyard, wears black and just generally doesn't like people. So they're pretty unlikely friends. And every 4 years in their town, 2 kids get taken, one seemingly good and one seemingly evil, to get taken to the School for Good and Evil. And essentially once you get taken, you never return. The School for Good and Evil teaches you either good traits or evil traits. Once you graduate, you try to have a fairy tale of your own. So all the fairy tales that you see throughout your bookstores, those are all actually stories that have happened in this magical universe. And so, surprisingly, Sophie and Agatha get taken to the School for Good and Evil, and Sophie has waited all her life for fancy dresses and princes and all that kind of stuff, and Agatha just wants to keep her friends safe. So once they get there, things might take a turn of events. We don't know where people are going, and it's just a really good story, and overall I'm really happy with how the series has progressed, and I'm definitely really happy with how this book was written and everything that happened in it. Overall for this book, I really liked all the characters. I thought there was mostly a lot of development, or overall characters were just good. We got introduced to a few new characters or dived a little deeper into some old characters, which I really liked. And if you read this book, there's one character in particular that I really am excited to talk about later on because he was just a very interesting character for more reason than one. So overall for characters in this book, I'd say we're pretty good, -1. I thought one character was kind of boring in this book. I'm not going to say who in this section of the video, but for characters overall, I'm really happy with how they turned out, and I liked diving into some of these characters that we already knew a little bit deeper. One thing I'm happy for this book is that there were no problematic things. I didn't really find anything problematic in this book. Maybe I missed it, but from my standard, everything was pretty good. The first book specifically and a little bit in the second book had a lot of stereotypes, and so I'm happy to see that the third and fourth book have little to none. The plot and overall story for this book I thought was really good. I like the concept of it. Basically, I'll do it in a non-spoilery way. Basically, once students graduate their first 3 years of the school, they have to go do a quest. And the deans of the school assign the quests to the students, and basically quests start going wrong, and basically everything is kind of connected in some overarching story that is happening, which is this book, and it actually carries on throughout the next books in the Camelot Years series or trilogy. And everything that kind of happens regarding the plot, I've really enjoyed. We get some romance that doesn't suck for once. I'm just saying, this book is better. It was better. I really just want a couple in particular just to have a happy ending for them to get along. Like, that's all I want, really. And one other thing with another character, but we'll talk about that later. And overall, romance was pretty good. I think the romance in this book was the best it's been in the story. Not even necessarily because it was good, but it was just like well written and talked about well, so I did enjoy that aspect of the book as well. Conflict, A+ for that. I thought there was a lot of conflict, internal and external, between different characters and the overall story. I really liked that aspect of it. The only thing I think I have to say negative about this book is some of the writing. I don't know if it's because I've read this book in the past. I only read it once and it was a few years ago, but I definitely caught on to things that maybe I either missed before or knew of since I read it before, but there was definitely a lot of obvious foreshadowing that I didn't really enjoy. So that's something I'm really excited to see in the next book, to see if I'm able to pick up on any foreshadowing since I hadn't read that book before. I want to see if it's because I'm a more critical reader, more like analytical reader, just kind of to catch things, or if it's just because I've read the story more than once. So stay tuned for my next video. Overall, I think my rating for this book, I'm pretty certain on at the moment, but I'll give this book a few more days to settle in. You can look at my Goodreads to see my final written review and overall rating, but I'm thinking I'm going to be rating this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy this book, it just didn't wow me as much as the last book. The last book I gave a 4 out of 5 stars because I really loved it. I thought everything was so well done. It just wasn't like something I'd talk about crazy, like this is something you have to read, especially since it's a third book in a series. However, this one I thought was really good. There was a few things in it that weren't problematic, but overall things just I didn't like as much, or things that I thought could be improved on. So that's one of the reasons I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a close to 4-star rating. I did overall enjoy the story, just a few like smaller things that kind of contributed to bringing it down half a star. I did give the second book in the series a 3.5 stars. Overall, I liked that story a lot. There was just problematic things which brought it down. So both of those books have 3.5 star ratings for different reasons. But if you did finish the third book and were interested in reading the fourth but you weren't sure, I would recommend reading it because I do think the story was really good, the characters were good, just an overall entertaining story, and overall really well done. I think that's all I have to say for my non-spoilery section. If you have any questions that you want me to answer, be sure to leave a comment down below and I will answer them for you. But after I'm done talking, we're gonna get into some spoilers because, as I've already said, we got lots of things to talk about for this book, many characters and story things, just gotta talk about them. So this is a spoilery zone starting now. Tea. This is not tea, but like tea of this book. Let's jump in, shall we? So, firstly, I want to talk about characters. Now, we had a whole bunch of great characters that were introduced, but I also want to talk about some previous characters first. I'm just going to talk about the character that I had the most problems with, and it was Tedros. This was actually like the only book I found Tedros kind of a boring character, and I honestly haven't seen that much progression with him as a character throughout the series. I just felt in this book it was kind of highlighted the most, because he dealt with, I'll go into this a little bit later in my conflict section, but he had a lot of internal conflict throughout the book, and normally when you have different things coming at you, different problems that you face, you kind of react differently as you learn and grow. However, I found that, for example, when Lancelot died, he kind of reacted, he cried, he was sad, but then afterwards he kind of was the same. Like, he didn't do anything differently, he was just kind of the same person he was before that event. And so other small things like that as well. So he couldn't pull out Excalibur during his coronation, but then at the same thing he kind of was the same. That event happened and it affected him, but he didn't really like change how he was doing anything. So all he did was he kept going at the sword, he just kept doing the same thing every day, but he wasn't actually trying to do anything else or trying to grow from it or try to be a better leader without pulling out the sword. So he kind of just did the same exact things over and over and over again, and he didn't really seem to grow from anything in the story. So I like him as a character in general. I just wish we saw more character development from him because I thought that would just make an overall better read. Even if that character development was like bad, like if he turned into like not a worse character, but just like a worse person. I want to see how these events took a toll on him. I'd rather even that than seeing him get better, just so we see something happens, because like he was kind of flat. Like he didn't really change over the course of the story. So Tedros, I like him, but like not in this book specifically, just because nothing really happened with his character. Agatha, she's always great. I don't really have anything bad to say about her. I wish we got more time with her, honestly, in the book to figure out things with her and all that kind of stuff, because only near the end, when she starts to figure things out, is when we get cool Agatha moments. So I just think like more of those would be great, because I think she's a great character. She's actually like the only character that actually like sees things as they are and like just calls like the problematic things out right at the start. Like, she's the only character that I feel is like fully honest and real in most regards of the world and how her life goes. Also, another character I really want to talk about that we've already had in the book forever is Sophie. Oh my god. This book is so good for Sophie. Like, honestly, like, we've been going through the first 3 books trying to figure out who Sophie is. Is she good? Is she evil? Who is she trying to be? Is she trying to impress anyone? Who is she actually? That's a big question we've had throughout the whole series, and I think in this book is where we get the closest to seeing who she truly is as a person, and honestly, we stand. Especially as the story comes to a close, I think from the beginning to the end we do see a whole lot of character development between her. Like, we see her being happy, being like a strong, independent woman, but then we also see her letting herself be able to love someone else, even if that love on one side was fake. But she tried genuinely, she tried to be open and honest, and she was like, oh, I'm sorry, was that like too evil of me? And the guy was like, oh no, but then she just continued being herself. She was more open, she was happy by herself, she was happy with someone, and she also values other types of relationships, such as friendships, which I really think is great for her. And overall, just seeing how she treats people throughout the story definitely got better between all the books, but this book specifically. So, you know, Sophie, A+ in this book. Like, if Sophie's character continues to grow in the 5th book, which if you know what the plot is of the 5th book, I have a strong feeling that it will. She'll have to do some exciting things that'll just cause some crazy things. So I'm really excited to see where she grows to. Hopefully she just gets better and better as a character or as a person rather than worse, because I feel she's getting really good up there. So I love Sophie. Oh, so good. Let's talk about a new character, shall we? Ryan. I think that's how you say his name. Like, looks like the spelling and how you pronounce it. So we're calling him Ryan. Overall, I did like his character. He seemed nice. He relatively seemed genuine, only to the point where after a little bit, he seems too fake. He seems too good. And you're like, how can someone be so good? He's so devoted to Tedros, he's so devoted to being a knight, and honestly those are things where you have to have like a lot of like passion and drive for it. But it almost seemed like he was too perfect all the time. Like anytime before that big reveal in the end, did we ever really see him doing anything wrong or bad? Not really. That's not even a bad thing about his character, it just seemed too fake. So that means like I could kind of see how he was gonna be a bad character, but at the end, I love how it's written at the end because he's good up until the last second where all of a sudden he completely switches the story around where the lion becomes the snake and the snake becomes the lion. That was a great story to put within the story, by the way, too. We love that. I'll dive into a little bit more of his character and what he does later on, but overall I did like how he was written in, and I thought he was a relatively believable character for the most part. Another character is Lady Gremlin. I'm not sure if that's how you say her name. She's the steward in the castle, and she just kind of floats around and helps people, especially Tedros and Agatha. I liked her as a character. I thought being in the story was actually really useful, really helpful, and kind of explained a lot of things. So when Tedros needed someone to help run the castle, she was there. When Agatha needed someone to keep her like on track, she was there. And she also served as a major plot point to basically how the lion, or Ryan, came to be. I know she died in the book, but like overall I really did enjoy her character. I did like her, and even though we're not probably gonna see too much more of her, maybe other than some backstory, I'm really happy with how this character was introduced and everything within her. We're coming close to the end of the characters. I know I'm rambling on, but just a few more minutes. These next two characters are connected. It is Lancelot, and I'm not sure totally how to pronounce her name. Guinevere? I don't know if that's how you say her name. I'm horrible with names, so don't take offense to that. But them. I really liked them together. I think that how much they love each other just kind of fuels them so much, makes each other so happy. And also when Lancelot dies, I think that's a key plot element as well, and also emotional factor for Guinevere, if that's her name, because the death of him kind of makes her sad and really wants to get revenge on the snake for killing him. And so once the lion like saves her last true love, being Tedros, her son, she kind of is like over emotional, being like, yes, you could take this key that you want, I trust you, you've saved my son, you've tried to save so many people, like this is for you. So I definitely think that death was almost necessary for her to be that like supportive for Ryan to get the key in the end. So I think that death was meaningful, not only for Tedros to be able to have some kind of emotion, but also for her to be able to be over emotional in that regard as well. I also want to talk about the coven. I think that's how you say that. Coven, I don't know. But between Hester, Annandale, and Dot, I loved them as a whole. I thought their friendship was great, and I like how they tease each other and all that kind of stuff, mostly to Dot, but they're great. I really liked when Dot's dad was like literally roasting her to the highest degree. Both of her friends like had her back so good, and I loved it so much. That's the only thing I really want to say about them. They're always great, but especially in this book when we finally see Dot has their friendships tested, they stood up to her like without a second thought, and I honestly love that and appreciate that. I want to talk about two more characters, being Nicole and Hort. Nicole was kind of introduced and kind of seemed almost too good as a character. You can learn a lot from reading, but I feel like you can't learn that many, like, you can read a lot, but until you practice those skills, you're not going to be as great as Nicole was in them. So even though she read a lot, I think like that part of her character is a little bit unrealistic. However, they are in a fairy tale universe, so who really knows? And also, she kind of mostly served as a love interest for Hort as well, with also just being super smart in one regard, but also in that regard as well. So I like her character. I'm not sure if she's gonna be like that important with the rest of the books. I hope she is though, because I'd like to see more of her character and why she's important. And also Hort. Hort starts off the book being madly in love with Sophie and kind of ends off liking Nicole. I'm not sure if he's forcing himself to try to like Nicole to get over Sophie, but I'm still kind of hoping Sophie and Hort get together because I think they'd be great together. And that's about it that I have to say for my characters. Overall, characters were good. I liked the development we saw through a bunch of different characters, most of all Sophie. So good, and I didn't really like Tedros in this book because nothing really happened with him. That was that groundbreakingly changing in his like physical character and how he dealt with things. That was a little bit of a longer segment, so we're gonna move on to, I would do problematic things, but I didn't find anything, so we're not gonna do any problematic things. By the way, if I'm looking down, it's because I have this piece of paper. We're gonna talk about plot and overall story and that kind of thing. So, as I said in the beginning of this video, one of the main things is that since this book is called The Quests for Glory, the students go on quests. And I really liked how Sophie was a dean and how she was like, oh, everything's great, I'm a great dean, it's all good, but really it was just Dubby like protecting her from what was actually going on. So we find out students' quests are failing, and I love the transition between the fact that the historian couldn't find a new story to write, but then also how all the small problems kind of were one big problem. I loved that element in the plot. I thought it was so good and really like well written. I really love that. Another thing we find out that we kind of get the gist of in the beginning, but then as the few chapters go on, we learn that about Tedros's coronation and how it was horrible. Like things were wrong. He's not a good public speaker, as we find out. He only makes one speech that's kind of good, which is at the end, very end of the book, and that kind of turned out wrong in the end for him anyways, so don't know what to do about that. But I also think that that little like doubt the author puts in your mind, being like, is Tedros the real king if he can't pull out this sword? Like, what's the real problem with this sword? I also like the plot, basically how we have the lion versus snake, how this old like Camelot fairy tale is kind of within the fairy tale universe and it's actually happening in real life. And especially I liked how the snake itself is talking about how the truth can become lies and the lies can become truth just depending on what side you look at it as. And also for Tedros' coronation, Excalibur, I thought that was really cool to learn that the sword is almost alive and one of the most magical objects in this universe. And so the fact that happened, I just thought it was great. And honestly, that whole thing between the snake and the lion, I really loved. Like, we have the snake who looks like an actual snake, and then we have the lion, which literally is wearing a lion mask. And we don't know who the snake is, but we know that the lion, or at least in the first half of the book, was Ryan. And I really liked how you see it and it's like clear as day, like who's who. But I also like the fact that the evil historian, how it flipped the truth and the lies just depending on whose perspective it was, I thought was really cool. Overall, the plot in this book I thought was really good. I really loved it. Just a few like minor things with like Tedros' character for one, and since he's a main character, I found it kind of important that there should be some kind of growth and development within him, but I didn't really see any. And then also one thing I'm gonna get into later. Overall plot for me though, I thought was absolutely amazing. Like overall the story like was so good. Like I loved the idea of it and the execution of it. It was so good. Next, let's talk about some conflict. Let's talk about Tedros. So I already have mentioned some of my problems with Tedros in this book, but we do see a lot of internal conflict with Tedros. He doesn't know how should he be like handling his kingdom, what he should be doing with Agatha, what he should be doing about Excalibur, what he should be doing about Merlin, his parents. He has so many doubts and questions within himself, and all he's trying to do is do his best, even though his best doesn't seem like it's actually a lot, but he is trying in his own way. And I liked the conflict we see between him, because even though I didn't really see any long-term like differences between him, just seeing that he was like constantly thinking about it and trying to do better, I did like that from like his personal like standpoint, being able to see that he wasn't just like a flat character, that he did have things going on, just I don't think it came across that well long term. Then we also have the same kind of thing for Agatha. She's trying to be there for Tedros and make decisions and protect him in any way she can, but she also is trying to figure out like how to protect everyone else, like all these kinds of things. Like if she's good enough, like all those kinds of questions that come within her as well. I liked reading about both of them from both Tedros's and Agatha's point of view, especially since they are in a relationship. You kind of can see how both of them think almost kind of the same. And then obviously the main conflict of the story is the lion and the snake, and who's who, what side will win, all that kind of stuff. I loved the conflict there. As I already said, plot was absolutely amazing. I thought this like conflict just between those two were so good. We see how the lion literally with a lion mask on and the snake looking like a snake, their actual fight at the end of part 1. And then we kind of see at the end of part 2 how the roles can be reversed quite quickly and just all that kind of stuff, both like figuratively with Tedros becoming the snake and Ryan becoming the lion, and then how we also see the literal physical snake come back to life. So honestly, super good. I love that conflict just between that for the whole story, and then I also loved that fact for the plot. Oh, it's so good. Now let's go into romance. We always love some good romance. However, some of the romance isn't always good. My favorite couple I'll get into a little bit later, but Tedros and Agatha, I liked them. I still like them together. I do think they'll do well together, but I feel they just gotta like be more like chill, because like they like each other a lot. They really do, but sometimes they don't get along, and honestly, if they could just both communicate better, like I feel so much could be avoided. Like Tedros at the beginning didn't talk to Agatha for 6 months. Like 6. That's a long time to not talk to your future wife. Like they're engaged, bruh. Like talk to your future wife. Okay? Like 6 months. That's a long time. So I think if they just communicated better, like so much could just be better. Or at the end when Agatha's talking to Sophie about how she doesn't think Tedros is a good king, if they just had this discussion and Agatha was like, I think you can work on this. Here's why. Here's how you can do it. Like if they just had this kind of discussion and were open and honest with each other, I feel like so many problems could be like solved in this story so much easier without all like the confusion and hassle and mistrust and just all that kind of stuff. So I do like them, but I wish they were just better at communicating, and I hope to see that development build in the 5th book, even though I hope they just end up alive together. Like honestly, like at the pace the story is going, that's all I want. They don't need to live a happily ever after, they just need to live. That's it. That's all they need. Together. Alright? Good. I loved the relationship, the romance between Sophie and Ryan, okay? Because I loved Sophie's development as a character, and I felt he kind of brought it out of her. Even though his side was fake, I liked how everything he said was like perfect for Sophie to grow from. Because every time they would talk and she said something like too evil, she would be like, oh, I'm sorry, that's like, I'm sorry, I should just be like fake and like pretend to be nice and everything. And he's like, no, I think that's good from you to just be open and honest. And then she was, and I'm like, this is the development we need from Sophie. So I'm wondering why he said these things. Was it just to be nice, or did he have some bigger picture with Sophie? Did he actually ever like her? I'm not sure about that, because the ending of the book was kind of just, you know, crazy. Oh my god, I'll get into this a little bit later, but the endings in all of these books are just crazy. Like, oh my god. Anyway, so I just thought their romance was actually really good. It seemed believable, honestly. Like, they both seemed to really like each other, and the fact that Sophie was happy, like, being in love with someone or trying to be in love with someone, I thought was really good. And overall, I liked them together, even though it did not end well. So hopefully we get some kind of like resolution in their romance in the 5th book. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. Also, Lancelot and whenever, I think that's how you say her name, I don't know, but I love their romance. I thought they're so cute together, and they spent so much of their life together, like a small like area. Like, they just deserve the world, and the fact that Lancelot died makes me so sad, because that was literally all she had other than Tedros, but like that was mostly like her true love for so long, and now that he's gone, like I feel so bad for her, because they deserve to be together and they deserve better. I just love them, okay? One more romance I want to talk about is between Hort and Nicole. I don't really think we see that much true romance, other than the fact that they just have like a few cute scenes, they talk a lot together, so maybe their romance is gonna grow into something more real, but I want to see another chapter from Hort's perspective to see if he actually likes Nicole or if he's actually still likes Sophie. Moving on to one more category I have, and then some overall thoughts at the end, is the writing. As I said in the beginning of this video, I'm not sure if it's because I read this book before, or if I just am more like, I don't even know the word for it, like I read like deeper and I can see the foreshadowing of things like better, but I definitely saw foreshadowing for the ending of this book. Just the fact that like how much Ryan's like past was brought up, but then also like pushed aside because something else happened, or he'd be asked a question but then a door would open and then they'd move on, or the fact that he knew exactly what to do at all times and all that kind of stuff. And there was a few other times in there that I don't remember, but I remember reading them and being like, this seems suspicious. And so at the end, it's just like, you can definitely tell something is going on with him throughout the whole book, at least for me, once we get introduced to him, especially in the second half. So the writing at that point, it was good, but I thought it was like too much foreshadowing. I don't know for sure though if it's because I read the book before, but that's what I thought. I also thought the fact that Ryan went to another school should have been explored more deeper in the book, or at least could have gotten like a mention at the beginning of the story, because I do think that it would be better to like get some background information rather than just getting all this information at the end. Also, one thing I want to talk about in just general between all these 4 books in the series is that the ending of all the books comes down to the last 10 pages. Like in the first book, we have Sophie and Agatha kiss, Tedros says wait, and then they're gone. Literally on the last page. That's what happens. Like the last 50 pages is fighting scenes, the last 10 pages is where your heart breaks. Then in the second book, they banish Sophie. They try to banish Sophie, but then Tedros and Agatha end up getting banished, and Sophie ends up staying with the schoolmaster. And that also happens in like the last 10-20 pages as well. In the third book, we have like what? We have the Happily Ever After, which is actually the only book that kind of ended on like a more sound note, with Sophie being the Dean of Evil and everything just kind of coming to a better conclusion. However, with this book, again, last 10 pages, last even like 5 pages, Ryan takes Xavier out of the stone, he becomes king, everyone loves him, Tedros in chains, all the side characters are like gone, like taken as well. Sophie is forced against her will to seem happy, and then Agatha runs away. Like this all happens in the last like few pages of the book. So I'm really hoping in the 5th book we get some kind of closure, because I'm gonna have to wait like 1 to 2 years for the last book to come out, and I ain't ready to do that. I need some closure this time, which I'm not sure I'm gonna get. So yeah, sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant right there, but you know what I mean. Anyways, those are really all my thoughts for this book. I do think that this book deserves a 3.5 stars because there were just a few things that I didn't really fully enjoy, just being the Tedros's lack of development and also a few things within the writing. Overall though, I thought many other things were really good about this story. Maybe I'll end up giving this book a 4 stars, but I think at this current moment I'm gonna give it a 3.5, but I'll let it sit in a few more days, so see what happens there. But as I already said, if you're looking into continuing the series past the 3rd book, I would recommend it, and I'm hoping the 5th book lives up to my expectations and is really, really good. So hopefully the series just keeps getting better and better like the books seem to be doing. Honestly, I'm so sad. The first book I did not like, but the rest of the books I'm like so in love with and they're so good, but like the first book just threw me off so much. Oh, maybe I need to reread it and just be less judgmental. No, that's not happening. I'm sorry, the 4th book kind of sucked. This book was really good. I really liked it. I don't really have anything much more to say about this book, but if you read this book, comment your thoughts down below because I'm actually really interested to see how other people think of this book. So I know I really liked it, so that's all I really got to say about this book. So thank you for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And as I said, comment your thoughts about this book down below. Or if you've read any other books in the School for Good and Evil series, let me know your thoughts down below. I will see you very soon with a new video following this book because I'm going to be reading it starting today, I think, hopefully, if I can get other schoolwork done. And so stay tuned for a video following this book and if I like it and all that kind of stuff there. Anyways, I will see you all next time with a new video, and until then, bye.